All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to put on our high-level brand consultant hats to really audit how accurately your corporate visual symbols are reflecting your core values. Because honestly, here's the harsh reality of modern business. You can spend absolutely millions of marketing dollars perfectly crafting your corporate messaging, but if your foundational visual identity, your logo, is sending the wrong psychological signal, well, all of that investment is actively working against you.
So let's kick things off by asking a pretty uncomfortable question. Are you truly aware of the subconscious, psychological impact your logo has on consumers before they ever read a single word of your marketing copy? Like, what is it actually saying behind your back? It's an absolutely critical question. You know, branding isn't just about what you say in a fancy press release or on a massive billboard. It's really about what people instantly feel in their gut the second they look at your company mark.
Okay, let's unpack this staggering number for a second, because human brains process images 60,000 times faster than text. That means your logo is a measurable, powerful psychological anchor that always speaks first. To really picture this, before a potential customer's rational brain has even fully booted up to read the actual name of your brand, their subconscious has already decided, oh, this company is cheap, or wow, this is luxurious, they seem aggressive, or they look friendly. It all happens purely based on visual processing, delivering a complete emotional pitch in literally a fraction of a second.
So, here is our super quick roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover the psychology of visuals, how you actually measure brand personality, dive into the Toyota and Honda test, look at the modern shift to curves, and finally, wrap up with some concrete steps for your next rebrand.
Starting right off with part 1, the psychology of visuals. We need to establish right out of the gate that a logo isn't just some aesthetic art choice. It's practically the visual encapsulation of your brand's entire soul. When you rely on literal, text-heavy designs, well, you're very quickly telling a consumer exactly what you do. But when you distill your identity down to a simplified, abstract symbol, you force the brain to interpret meaning purely through geometry and hue. You're completely removing the literal explanation and basically asking the consumer to feel the brand entirely through abstract shapes and colors. It's a whole different ballgame.
Which leads us to part 2. Measuring brand personality.
To move beyond just, subjective design opinions like, I kind of like the blue better, we rely on Stanford professor Jennifer Akers' brand personality scale. Because let's face it, in the boardroom, you need hard, measurable data. This scientific framework proves that traits like sincerity, excitement, competence, sophistication, and ruggedness can actually be accurately quantified. Let's really think about what these dimensions mean. Sincerity is all about being down to earth. Competence is reliability. Ruggedness is tough and outdoorsy. So if your brand is known for being incredibly rugged, think of a company like Harley-Davidson, but your visual mark communicates something super delicate or overly polished, well, you've got a massive subconscious disconnect on your hands.
All right, part 3, the Toyota and Honda test. To really prove the high stakes of visual alignment, we're going to audit some real-world data from a fascinating case study out of Shiba University. Researchers essentially isolated the purely graphic, letterless symbols of Japanese auto giants Toyota and Honda to see if their logos actually matched their perceived brand personalities. And honestly, stripping away the letters is the ultimate stress test for any corporate logo. The researchers wanted to see exactly what that naked geometry, the interlocking ellipses and the sharp metallic borders, communicated in a complete vacuum, totally divorced from the famous brand names themselves.
Look at this data. It shows that while Toyota successfully aligns its brand and logo on the competence dimension, the logo itself introduces an unexpected element of sophistication that the overall brand isn't even primarily known for. Consumers saw the brand as responsible and determined, which is fantastic. But that sleek logo added a distinct layer of elegance they weren't necessarily expecting. Now, as an executive, you kind of have to ask yourself, is adding sophistication a good accident or a bad one? While a little extra elegance isn't exactly harmful, it literally proves that the brand is projecting a subconscious signal that the corporate team never intentionally engineered.
Similarly, Honda shares that exact same competence alignment. People know they build super reliable machines, but their logo falls significantly short in projecting the sincerity and peacefulness they might actually want to convey to today's buyers. Think about the stark contrast here. Honda's sharp, rigid H feels highly competent and structurally sound, sure, but in a modern era where buyers desperately want eco-friendly, transparent, and sincere companies, that sharp metallic logo is kind of actively working against their wider corporate messaging. It just lacks warmth.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that if global, multi-billion-dollar automotive giants are experiencing these significant psychological perception gaps, your own corporate identity is definitely susceptible to misinterpretation too.
The researchers found measurable differences between brand and logo in about half of all the personality facets they tested. Half! You simply cannot assume your visual mark is saying what you think it's saying, which leaves us with a critical question. If a massive auto giant has a perception gap, what on earth is your logo accidentally saying? And more importantly, how are modern brands fixing this?
And that brings us to part 4, the shift to curves.
This highlights a major modern market trend and totally explains why so many legacy brands are actively redesigning their rigid old-school logos into softer shapes. We're seeing a massive shift away from intimidating corporate authority, moving aggressively toward authenticity. Brands are utilizing friendly curves, circles, and lowercase fonts to build subconscious trust. Gone are the days when a brand needed sharp, aggressive angles just to prove its dominance in the market. Why? Because authority is out and authenticity is in. Today's consumer wants a conversation, not a monologue, and aggressive, sharp angles visually shut that conversation down, whereas curved lines psychologically initiate warmth, comfort, and approachability.
Furthermore, this whole shift leans heavily on the Gestalt law of simplicity. To put it really simply, the human brain is lazy. It loves things that are incredibly easy to process. It always chooses the path of least visual resistance. This is exactly why brands like KFC and Nissan have stripped away all that complex 3D shading for flatter, highly memorable graphics. Nissan dropped the heavy metallic sheen, and KFC simplified their icon down to just basic flat colors. Dropping those 3D shadows and metallic gradients basically saves the consumer's brain from doing unnecessary cognitive work. Overly complex details require effort, whereas simple, flat designs, they are instantly digestible and infinitely more memorable.
All right, rounding the corner to part 5, steps for your rebrand.
Now that we've run the diagnostic, let's deliver the consultant's playbook on how you can actively align your corporate visuals. If you are even contemplating an identity change, you need to treat this as your exclusive playbook. Number 1, intimately understand your demographic. 2, measure your current logo against Acres scale to uncover any hidden perception gaps. 3, strip out non-essential elements using the Gestalt theory of simplicity. And 4, ensure responsive versatility. Actually, let's spend a second on that last one. Picture your massive, beautifully intricate corporate logo being shrunk all the way down to a tiny 16-pixel icon on a smartphone web browser tab. If it loses its essence or just turns into a blurry mess at that scale, yeah, it's too complex and definitely needs refinement.
But remember this, evolution doesn't mean abandoning your identity. It just means refining it to perfectly align with who you are now. If you look at the history of McDonald's or Coca-Cola, it clearly shows us that a great logo doesn't need constant, chaotic reinvention, just thoughtful, consistent evolution. Coca-Cola's script has survived since the 1880s precisely because it maintains that emotional familiarity. Evolution, not revolution, is the ultimate key to preserving brand equity. A complete chaotic redesign can literally destroy decades of subconscious trust that you and your executive team have paid millions of dollars to build. You do not have to start from scratch just to modernize.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to take back to your next boardroom meeting. Audit your own symbols today. Take a really close look at your visual identity. Is your logo a strategic asset actively driving trust, or is it a psychological liability that is silently confusing your consumers? Thanks so much for diving into the fascinating psychology of design with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.